Want to the Cloud Security Bootcamp. So the team of this bootcamp is building the next generation of cloud security soldiers. And we have our organizers in the person of Emmanuel Itoje, Haladu Abdullahi, Oyimafu Emmanuel, Steve Osonuga. And we have our mentors, Emmanuel Itoje, Opeyemi Stephen, Haladu Abdullahi, Chinke Ojiji, Chukwudi, Akechukwu, Chidimma Ugu, Elvis Akandu, and Nunso Nwokedi. So these mentors has really been trying their best to teach us and train us from the beginning of this cloud security bootcamp. And we are actually continuing in the next stage. So let's meet me. My name is Oyimafu Emmanuel. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm a technical architect, M365 Azure and cloud security. So these are my certifications. I'm a Teams administrator. I know how to manage Microsoft Teams, Teams meetings, Teams chat, Team channel, and I'm also an Azure network engineer managing Azure network solutions, virtual network gateway, firewall, and hub. And also, I'm also a Windows Server hybrid administrator. I know how to manage Windows Server, cloud infrastructure. I'm an Azure solution architect. I can also bridge Microsoft solutions to customers as it fits their needs. I'm a Microsoft 365 certified expert. I can also architect Microsoft 365 solution. I'm an Azure administrator. I also have Azure fundamentals. Of course, you have to start with the fundamentals in your journey in cloud because you can't just fly to associate. So I started from Azure fundamentals and the security fundamentals of cloud. So this is me. One thing with introduction, I like introducing myself very well because I don't know those on the call. I don't know where we'll meet tomorrow. So you can say, okay, this guy, he knows this, he knows this. So this is just basically me. My name is Oyimafu Emmanuel. And if you can hear me very well, please, can you just use the mic? Can you just signify, maybe just give some reactions to show that you can hear me and you can see my screen?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. I can also see
Oh,
your screen.
okay, thank you. Thank you. So I'm
Yes, we
going
can
to
hear you.
Yeah, I'm going to skip our approach because we have said all this countless of times. So today I'm just moving to today's class. So today we are looking at implementing and managing hybrid identity. We have been talking about identity, but it is best we know how to manage hybrid identity. Please, if you are not muted, can you just mute your mic? If you are joining the meeting, kindly ensure that your mic is muted. Thank you. And this is our objectives for today. So before I start my trainings or my classes, I would like my students to actually know what they are going to learn at the end of the section, so that at the end of the section, if there's anything I've not covered, you can just draw my attention. Okay, we're supposed to talk about this, but you didn't actually cover it. We are going to talk about plan, design, and implement Microsoft Entra Connect Sync. We are going to talk about implement and manage password hash synchronization. We are going to talk about implement and manage pass-through authentication. And we're going to look at implement and manage federation. We are going to look at how we can troubleshoot synchronization errors and how we can implement Microsoft Entra Connect Health and how we can manage Microsoft Entra Connect Health. So basically, we have a lot of implementations here. It doesn't mean that during the section, I'm going to implement pass-through authentication. I'm going to implement and manage federation. I'm just going to give us an overview of how it looks like. Then we are going to see how we can install AD Connect using password hash synchronization. Just stay tuned, and if you have any question, you can always unmute your mic and ask your question so we don't go too far and then we start coming back again. So just ask your question as I proceed. Thank you very much. So we are going to start with plan, design, and implement Microsoft Entra ID. So firstly, if you want to implement hybrid identity, you need Microsoft Entra Connect. Microsoft Entra Connect is a tool that you can use to implement hybrid identity. So Microsoft Entra Connect, you install it in your on-premise environment in connection with your domain controller. That is what establishes the connectivity between your Entra ID and on-premise Active Directory to enable users use their credentials they use in accessing your on-premise applications and also your applications in Microsoft Entra ID. So Microsoft Entra ID is a solution that bridges an organization's on-premise Active Directory with your cloud-based Microsoft Entra ID. All what we have been learning from the beginning of this section has been Microsoft Entra ID, Microsoft Entra ID. But Microsoft also have a traditional directory management system called Active Directory. Active Directory is used in an on-premise environment. So now what we are looking at is how we can manage hybrid environment in such a way that a customer that have on-premise Active Directory and have Entra ID, they can combine them together and work in an hybrid way. Hybrid is just like having two legs, one leg in your on-premise environment, then one leg in the cloud. So Microsoft Entra ID is a cloud-based identity management system, while Active Directory is a local identity management system. Microsoft Entra Connect gives you this functionality. It gives you synchronization. For synchronization, what it means is it helps you synchronize your users and their computers from on-prem to the cloud. You can have what we call hybrid identity. An hybrid identity is an identity that is created on-premise and synced to the cloud. We are going to see how hybrid identity work. We are going to create a user on-prem and sync that user to the cloud. And the user will now have access to Microsoft 365 apps and other SaaS applications that Microsoft have. So that's just what Microsoft Entra Connect is. It's a tool that is used to establish connectivity from your on-premise Active Directory to Microsoft Entra ID. For hybrid identity, Microsoft don't only use Microsoft Entra Connect. They also have Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync, which we are going to still look at Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync, and we are going to see the differences between Microsoft Entra Connect and Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync. But let's just understand that this is your cloud environment. This is Microsoft Entra ID. In Microsoft Entra ID, if you create a user, you can give the user license to have access to Office 365, your own enterprise applications, and other SaaS applications like ServiceNow and Google. You can give them access to other SaaS applications. This is a user. This user now, the user tries to sign into his device. In an hybrid environment, even if the user is created on-prem, the user can as well use his on-premise credentials to access the on-premise applications and also Microsoft 365 applications in the cloud. That is just hybrid. So we're going to proceed. Now let's look at Microsoft Entra Connect Sync. So Microsoft Entra Connect Sync now it does similar thing to Microsoft Entra Connect, but the difference is that Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync is lightweight. All you just need to do is to install the agent in your on-premise environment. That agent is what now establish a connectivity to Microsoft Entra ID. So with Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync, you don't need to do any network planning. All you just need to do is you just install the Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync agent to your on-premise environment, create your group managed service account, and you are good. So it is a lightweight provisioning agent required on the on-premise AD. So you can install it on the on-premise AD. You can install it on any other server in your local environment. All sync configuration is managed in the cloud, unlike Microsoft Entra Connect Sync. Microsoft Entra Connect Sync, all sync configuration is managed on-prem, but with Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync, all sync is managed in the cloud and can be used in conjunction with Microsoft Entra Connect Sync. What this means is that some environment that want high availability in their user management, they can install Microsoft Entra Connect and also use Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync. So the advantage of Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync is that you can have multiple agents deployed in your on-premise environment. Should in case if any server is down, your user's synchronization will still be happening. If there is password change, if there is, let's say, any update in a user profile, it will still sync. So that's just one advantage of Cloud Sync because you can have multiple agents running. But for AD Connect, you can have two AD Connect installed in your environment, but one must be in staging mode. Both of them cannot be running at the same time. So that is one drawback of AD Connect. You can just have one active, then the other one can just be there in case if maybe the active one goes down, you can just switch it up immediately. But for Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync, you can have multiple agents installed in your environment in such a way that if any of the server goes down, meaning that from Microsoft Entra ID, where you manage the synchronization, you will see it that the server is not available. The key difference is Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync, it is lightweight. You just install the agent in your on-premise environment. But Microsoft Entra ID Connect, you have to install the application and configure it in your on-premise environment. Everything you manage it on-prem. We are going to see how we'll configure that in our lab. So if you have any question, you can just ask so I can explain further. And we are going to look at the authentication methods that is used for hybrid identities. So one of the authentication method is Microsoft Entra password hash synchronization. Yeah. Does anybody have any question?
Your brain is either stronger in the areas
Okay, if you are joining the call, you can mute your mic, please. You can mute your mic. Okay, so we have Microsoft Entra password hash synchronization. So what this means is that users can use the same username and password that they use on-premise. What password hash does is that the password on the on-premise server, the hashes of the password is synced to Microsoft Entra ID. The major advantage of password hash synchronization is that it's not dependent on the availability of the domain controller. Even if the domain controller is not currently online at that time, users can still authenticate because the hashes of their password are stored in Microsoft Entra ID. That is the advantage of pass-through authentication. But for That's the advantage of password hash synchronization. But for pass-through authentication, simple password validation for Microsoft Entra ID authentication services is done using an agent that runs on one or more servers on your on-premise environment, meaning that if that agent is down, that means password validation will fail. So the difference between this password hash synchronization and pass-through authentication is that pass-through authentication needs validation, but this password hash synchronization doesn't need validation because the hashes of the password are stored in Microsoft Entra ID. So even if the on-premise servers are down, users will still be able to sign in with their password. But for pass-through authentication, there needs to be a simple password validation for, for Microsoft Entra ID authentication. And this agent that is going to use for the pass-through has to be installed in your on-premise server. Once we proceed, we are going to see how all these things work. I'm going to show us like a pictorial representation of how they work. So now we are looking at federated authentication. So this federated authentication now has to do with trust. It has to do with trust. So Microsoft Entra ID hands off the authentication process to a separate trusted authentication system to validate the user's password. So if you want to really understand federation authentication, that means you need to be very familiar with ADFS, Active Directory Federation Service, because that's what you use to manage federation in an enterprise environment. So the authentication system can provide additional advanced authentication requirements such as smart card or third-party multi-factor authentication. If you want to use third-party multi-factor authentication or smart card, then you can use federated authentication. So now we are looking at how to implement and manage password hash synchronization. Let's not forget that password hash synchronization is part of the authentication methods that you can use to implement Microsoft Entra Connect Sync. So if you're implementing Microsoft Entra Connect Sync, you have to choose between password hash synchronization, pass-through authentication, or federation. You have to choose one if you are doing the configuration. But the easiest one to configure is password hash synchronization because you don't need any agent installed. All you just need to do is just install your Entra ID Connect and you are good. So we just proceed. So now this is password hash synchronization in an hybrid environment. We can see here Microsoft Entra hybrid identity with password hash synchronization. This is a user. If this user wants to sign in to any services in Microsoft Entra ID, we can see here, there is a line here between the cloud and between the on-premise environment. And in your on-premise environment here, that is where you install Microsoft Entra Connect. Microsoft Entra Connect is always installed in your on-premise environment. And if you configure it using password hash, it means that the hashes of the password are stored here. If a user wants to access any of the cloud services, because of the hashes of the password, the user can always access any of the cloud services from either authentication, from either identity platform. Microsoft Entra ID is cloud-based. Active Directory is local. It is on-premise. That is why it is in your on-premise environment. Both of them There are some organizations that use Active Directory. They don't want to use Entra ID. There are some that use hybrid in such a way that their users are synced from Active Directory to Microsoft Entra ID. When we start the lab and I show us how Active Directory look like, let's not worry. It's going to be very familiar and very easy for all of us to understand. So password hash, this is just a clear definition of what password hash is. You have your AD Connect installed in your on-premise Active Directory, and the hashes of these passwords of your users are synced to Microsoft Entra ID. If these users want to access this any Microsoft applications like Outlook, let's say SharePoint or OneDrive, with the same credentials that they use to access their on-premise applications or sign into their system, they can as well use the same credentials to access their SaaS applications. That is just for password hash synchronization. And we can see password hash synchronization is very simplistic. It doesn't have much things that you worry about. Just install your Entra ID Connect and you sync your users and you're fine. So we'll just continue and see how password hash synchronization works. Okay, as it is here now, if this is cloud identity platform, which is Microsoft Entra ID, and this is on-premise identity platform, which is Active Directory. So we can see that there is connection between these two platforms. Your on-premise and Microsoft Entra ID is connected to each other. How is it connected to each other? Microsoft Entra Connect. If one thing will be your takeaway from this class is that if maybe you are asked or you are writing an exam and maybe someone just asks you, I want to set up my environment in an hybrid way. Just know that if they are talking about identity, they want to have on-premise Active Directory and Entra ID. You can have hybrid identity in cloud also, whereby you have servers on-prem and you have VMs in Azure. But in terms of identity now, because we are looking at identity infrastructure. So for identity infrastructure, for it to be in hybrid environment, you need an on-premise Active Directory and Microsoft Entra ID together. So we can see here, this is a user. If you want to access on-premise applications, he used password 1, which is his password. And if you also want to access Microsoft Entra cloud resources like Office applications and your own personal enterprise applications, he used the same password. So what this tells us is that the hashes of the password are actually synced. Even if this on-premise Active Directory is down, the user will still be able to authenticate to any of the SaaS application. But let's not forget that it is the hashes of the password that is synchronized, not the actual password. So why the hashes of the password is synchronized is because even if hackers try to actually decode it, it will be very difficult for them to decode it. So that is why it is the hashes, not the actual password that is synced to the cloud, although this is just a pictorial representation. Yeah. So now let's look at how to enable it. Although we are going to do this in a practical way, but if you're installing AD Connect, you have the options to select the authentication method that you want to use. You see it here, select the sign-on methods. So you can choose password hash synchronization, you can choose pass-through authentication, you can choose federation with ADFS, and you can even say do not configure. Depending on you, the choice is yours. And if you want to enable single sign-on, you can enable it so that once your users sign into their PC, they automatically get signed into all the applications. They don't need to be signing in one after the other. That's one thing with single sign-on, and they are going to use the same password as well to sign in. So this is just how to enable password hash synchronization. So we continue with implementing and managing pass-through authentication. We have looked at password hash synchronization, and we can see how simplistic password hash synchronization is. Now we want to look at how to implement and manage pass-through authentication. Let's not forget that the sign-in methods or the authentication method we have is password hash synchronization, pass-through authentication, and federation. But now we are looking at pass-through authentication. For pass-through authentication, we can see how it works. This is the cloud, and this is on-premise. We see agents. So all these agents is what handles the authentication. So meaning that if this agent is down, there will be no validation. meaning that the users will not be able to sign into cloud workloads. If you are using pass-through authentication, it means that you need to have a dedicated power supply in your on-premise environment if they are not in the cloud. Because if anything makes your on-premise environment goes down, users will not be able to access cloud workloads because Microsoft Entra ID depend on the agent installed in the local Active Directory for validation. It needs to validate, it needs to do validation, and it needs to revalidate anytime somebody tries to sign into any cloud workloads. So we can see here, you can only use Microsoft Entra, you can use Microsoft Entra Connect to establish pass-through authentication, just like we saw on the other slide where we have pass-through authentication and we have federation. If you are configuring, maybe you want to set up an identity infrastructure for a client and they told you to install AD Connect or they want you to establish hybrid. These are the questions you ask the client. Which authentication method do you want? Do you want it to be pass-through? Then you tell them the advantages of pass-through authentication. If they have a maybe standby power supply that runs 24 hours, they can use pass-through authentication depending on what they want. Each organization, there are some organizations that want validation to be done on-premise because of their own compliance. Maybe auditors recommend that for them, that their authentication should be done on-premise. So those are the questions you ask a client. But for you to establish all this, you need to install Microsoft Entra Connect because Microsoft Entra Connect is what established the handshake from your on-premise environment to the cloud environment. So what this means is that this is how it works. If a user wants to sign into any of these applications, it goes vice versa to Microsoft Entra Connect server. So Microsoft Entra Connect server, because it is installed in the on-premise environment and it has direct connection with Active Directory, it now sends the request to the authentication agent to validate the password from the Active Directory server of those users. If it is correct, then it sends it back. Then the user now sign in to access Office application. So the flow goes like this. A user types his username and password to sign into any of the Microsoft Entra applications here. Then the authentication goes to the agent here. It goes through the Microsoft Entra Connect. Then the Microsoft Entra Connect hits the Active Directory. Okay, this person has provided his username, maybe Olamilekon at cloudschool.com. Is this password correct for validation? Just like the way you validate. If you go to, maybe you want to do something now and they want to validate your documents, they will have to check, does it correspond? This person's name is Olamilekon Adebayo. Okay, this is his first name, this is his last name. Then they check your BVN. They discover that your last name there is Adebayo. And in your NIN, your last name is Olamilekon. They will say validation has failed. So pass-through authentication does the same thing. It will validate your credentials and your password against your Active Directory. So all the validation is done in your on-premise environment, meaning that if your on-premise environment goes down at any instance, your users will have to wait. Authentication will fail. So agent requirements of password authentication using two agents for redundancy. Why Microsoft recommend using two agents for redundancy? We all know that anything can happen. One of your servers may go down, maybe due to maintenance, anything can happen. So if you have two agents, one installed on your file server or one installed on your backup server, or even on the Active Directory itself, then at least your users will be safe. They will be able to work because redundancy is important if you're using pass-through authentication because it is highly dependent on your on-premise environment. But password hash synchronization doesn't really depend on your on-premise environment. It just depends on your on-premise environment to sync the users to the cloud and their password. Then anytime, even if the on-premise environment is down, they'll still be able to log in and work. So we'll just continue and we'll look at how pass-through authentication work. Just like we explained, the pass-through agent needs to be installed in the on-premise environment. It needs to be installed in the on-premise environment, and that's what validates the password. You can see here, password validation requests are sent to the Windows Server Active Directory via pass-through authentication. That means, what this means is that if the on-premise domain controller is down, that means what will it pass through? It won't be able to pass through anything and everything will just be there. The person will not be able to sign in. So that is why it is best practice you have two agents deployed in your environment for redundancy and high availability. So we can see here, identity synchronization using Microsoft Entra ID. Yeah. So you can use Microsoft Entra ID Connect for identity synchronization, syncing users, computers, groups from on-prem to Entra ID. Let's not forget, Entra ID is cloud-based. Active Directory is local. It's in your on-premise domain controller. It's a rule that you add to a server. So now let's look at how to enable pass-through authentication. Just like we saw on how to enable password synchronization, is the same thing. That was why I was saying that if you want to deploy all these things for clients or any customer, it is good you understand the business need of the customer, so that as the identity architect, you'll be able to propose the right authentication method for the clients. You can't just say, okay, let's use password hash. It's simplistic, it's the best. It is best you understand the business need and see if password hash synchronization can add value to the organization. Or maybe if it is pass-through authentication that will give them more value, you do it, depending on what you have seen in the environment, maybe after your assessments in their infrastructure or the likes. So that is what will make you recommend. So that is why it's good you understand all the authentication method, so that if you are recommending or you are quoting for a client, you can have what you say when you are writing your proposals. So we can see here, even if after you have already installed AD Connect, maybe you use password hash synchronization, the client now come back and say, why will you use password pass-through authentication or password hash? We want to use pass-through. You can always come back to your settings and change any setting you want, which we are going to look at in the lab. So let's just stay tuned. We're going to do the lab. We're going to see Active Directory environment. I'm going to be walking us through Active Directory environment shortly. So now we are looking at seamless single sign-on, how we can do seamless single sign-on. After this, we'll look at federation. So seamless single sign-on, users sign in via on-premise or via Entra ID Connect alternatively. So even if you are signing to your on-premise applications or you are signing into Entra ID, you can use the same password. That's one big advantage of single sign-on, because it is not easy for somebody to be remembering different passwords for different applications. Maybe you want to log into Salesforce, you have another application. You want to log into your financial application, maybe Finacle, you have another password. You want to log into, let's say, another application, you have another password, which is not the best. So that is why single sign-on is good, so that your users, even if they are signing to on-premise or on-premise applications or Microsoft Entra ID, they can use the same password. Users signs in from on-premise domain join computer, the same password to access Microsoft Entra ID, no different passwords. So you can read up on how to set up single sign-on and what single sign-on really do on your own spare time, so that you get more understanding in terms of maybe you want to explain to anybody or you want to write your article. You can be more detailed in your explanation. So we can see how seamless single sign-on is set up. Just the same way you configure pass-through authentication. Pass-through authentication can be configured alongside single sign-on. And you can also configure pass-through authentication alongside password hash synchronization. You can configure single sign-on alongside password hash synchronization, not password hash authentication, sorry, not only pass-through authentication, but this is how you configure single sign-on. So in case maybe you go to an organization and you discover that single sign-on is not enabled and they are in hybrid environment, if you want to configure it, it is very easy. All you just need to do is to go to the AD Connect, double click on the AD Connect, then go to user settings. You'll be able to configure all this, and we are going to see how all this work in our lab. So I'm trying to hurry up on the theory so that we'll have more time for our labs and questions. So seamless single sign-on is enabled using Microsoft Entra Connect. While enabling this single sign-on, the following steps should occur. So if you want to enable single sign-on, this is what you need to know. This is what you need to do. A computer account, which is your Azure AD SSO account, is created on your on-premise Active Directory. This is important for single sign-on. You need a computer account that is created on your on-premise Active Directory. A set of Kerberos service principal, known service principal names, SPNs, are created to be used during the Microsoft Entra ID sign-in process. So Kerberos decryption key is shared securely with Microsoft Entra ID. We can see the decryption key is shared securely with Microsoft Entra ID, meaning that there is no way for hackers to penetrate because it's shared in a secured connection. So single sign-on can be enabled using Microsoft Entra ID. So we are going to see how this tool is installed in our demonstration. So now we'll look at how to implement and manage federation. So please, if you mistakenly unmute your mic, please can you mute back? Can you mute your mic? I can see someone unmuted their mic. Please mute your mic. Thank you. So let's look at implementing federation. We can see federation. Federation is more complex because this alone is a job. Federation engineer. It's not really easy, let me not lie. Federation is tough, it's very difficult because some people spend years mastering only federation, how federation work. It's a very strong aspect of security, of securing identity infrastructure, federation. So for federation now, this is your on-premise environment, this is your cloud. In pass-through authentication, there's nothing like parameter, but you can see in federation, you also need a parameter network. You need your federation proxy, you need federation proxies. In pass-through authentication, it is agents. So the way this one works too, if your federation server is down, sometimes you can be asked in interview that, okay, someone tried to sign in to their office apps and they say your server is down. What happened? So it could be that the federation server is down. They can ask you that question in interview. So your mind should think outside the box. What if they're using federation? Because you know, Entra ID can never be down. Can never be down because it's cloud-based, and Microsoft has a lot of redundancy for their cloud services. Unlike let's say on-prem. On-prem can face a lot of things. There can be disaster, there can be anything. So anything can happen. But that's why at least you need backup. You need like you need two agents or two federation pros deployed. So we can see the way this one to work. It works with validation also, like pass-through authentication. So this is a robust infrastructure. If you want to configure it, you need to add Active Directory Federation service, Active Directory Federation service role to your environment. So this is majorly good for large environments or large infrastructure. Let's say like Coca-Cola. We know that Coca-Cola is a very big company that there is no country, maybe like few countries in this world that doesn't drink Coke. Almost all the countries in this world, they drink Coke. Anywhere you go, you see Coke. Even if you like, go to Saudi Arabia, they sell Coke there. Even if you like, go to China, Coke is there. Coke is everywhere. And they have companies. They have different companies in all these locations. And each of them, they have their own identity. They have their own identity infrastructure because they have several locations in different countries. They have factories. So for Cook now, to establish a relationship between all their factories in different countries, that is where they need federation. Because you can use federation to establish trust. You can establish trust between all your companies in different locations, just like a company like Coca-Cola that have different branches that they are everywhere. Like anywhere you go there, people are drinking Coke like that. Like some people say they can't do without it. So that is how to tell you the how valuable people like such product. So in such environment, it's a very big company. It's a very big infrastructure that have different branches. That's where they can use federation. You can see here, we have federation server. So your federation server now is a server on its own that connects to your proxy server that anytime somebody is trying to sign in, that's that's the server that the person is redirected to. That was why I was saying that if your question is asked to you during an interview and say somebody tried to sign in with username and password and it fails, just know that this server that handles the authentication is down. That's why. Because if it is down, there's no way validation can happen. Validation cannot happen if this server is down because it has to pass through like this before it validates and send everything to the user to sign in. At least pass through. It's even agent based, but this one you have a lot of configurations you need to do to set it up. So if we go next, we are going to see federation, what federation looks like. You can see the way it is. Microsoft Entra ID with federation. You have your web application proxy server that handles the authentication and sign-in requests for users. If a user tries to access with Federation, users can access Microsoft Entra ID using their credentials in on-premise environment. And also, if you have external user, this externet is external user. So you can actually give your users access using your federation, using your federation service infrastructure to have access to any of your resources, whether on-prem or cloud. That is one advantage of federation. You can actually create trust relationship between external organizations. You can create trust relationship with different, like maybe if you have several branch, like Coca-Cola now, they have several branch, and you want users in Nigeria to be able to access files in US, or to be able to access, you want to be able to add users in Nigeria's group to maybe US group, maybe the MDs, you want them to be in the same group, all the MDs in the whole countries, then you can actually create that trust relationship between them in your federation infrastructure. So users sign into Microsoft Entra ID service using their on-premise password. Yes, if you are using federation. And let's note that federation uses a new or existing farm with ADFS in Windows Server 2012 R2 and later. We all know that Microsoft is recommending that we all go to Windows Server 2025. But if maybe, for instance, your clients still use Windows Server 2012 R2, it's still supported for your federation farm. So you can actually use it. Microsoft Entra Connect configures the trust between Microsoft Entra ID and the on-premise farm. So if you are using Microsoft Entra ID Connect, it makes your connection easy from your Entra ID to your on-premise federation farm. It makes it easier for you. So that's just for federation. So we have 3 authentication. Let's not forget. We have password hash, we have pass-through authentication, and we have federation. So if you want to deploy federation, you need a local administrator credentials on your federation server, the local administrator credential on any local server that you intend to deploy the web application proxy on, and the machine that you run the wizard on to be able to connect to any machines that you want to install ADFS or web application proxy. So configuring ADFS farm is a very big project that the network team needs to be involved, because all this network connectivity, it has to be connected to different organizations, it has to be connected to different services. It's the network team that handle that. As an infrastructure, as a identity architect, you may not really touch much things about network, but you work closely with your network team. So we can see that configuring ADFS, you even need network guys to come in, because the network infrastructure needs to be in place. So now, to configure ADFS server farm with Entra ID Connect, if you want to do it, this is how you do it. So once you select under your sign-in options, once you select federation, you see these settings here. Then we ask you, do you want to configure a new ADFS farm, or you want to use an existing ADFS farm? Depending on the one you want to use, you select. If you want to configure a new ADFS farm, then you need to provide a certificate. You need to provide an exported certificate that you want to configure. So .pfs file is an extension for certificate. Then you put the subject name. So what this means is that if this subject name is sts.fabricam.com, it must correspond with the certificate you have here. The certificate subject alternative name must carry sts.fabricamonline.com. That's just the way it is. So let me just check if recording is currently in progress. Okay. Okay. So during the lab, we'll see how AD work. Then let's see how to implement Microsoft Entra Connect Health. So one thing we need to understand is that it's not about deploying solution. The health of the solution you are deploying is very important, because you are supposed to be able to monitor. That is why even in application infrastructure, monitoring and site reliability is very important. And as well in identity infrastructure, you need to be able to monitor your hybrid environment. And if you want to monitor your hybrid environment, you use Microsoft Entra Connect Health. So that is what helps you to monitor your environment. We can see what Microsoft Entra Connect Health helps you to do. It provides a robust monitoring of your on-premise identity infrastructure. You can monitor your on-premise identity infrastructure. You can see what's going on there. You can see the way it looks like a graph. You'll be looking at it. This person can be their NOC engineer. that will be watching it. Okay, this person tried to sign in and it failed, it didn't work. This one failed. So that's just the way it is here, like this. And it enables you to maintain a reliable connection to Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Online Service. You know that if at any point your AD Connect server or your ADS, maybe your AD Connect infrastructure fails, if you are using ADFS or you are using password authentication, that means your users will not be able to authenticate. That is why monitoring is very important, so that before the MD gets aware that something is happening, or before people start calling him that, are you trying to connect? You know, the MD may not even be available at that time. Somebody will try to authenticate and like, I can't authenticate. So maybe it's friends with the MD. We just call the MD and they'll call you that what's happening. But if you have Microsoft Entra Connect Health installed, it will tell you, it will even alert you that, Microsoft Entra Service Health, the service is not running, no. Meaning that maybe the server is down or there's network issue. Immediately you start raising. You can even send an email to the staffs that, hold on, we are working on it. At least it is better that you are aware than you are not aware. They are not the one telling you that we can't connect to, we can't authenticate, which doesn't speak well of a security engineer. Because as a security engineer, you're supposed to be like be 2 steps ahead of your users in case of downtime. If anything is happening, you need to be ahead of them. So that is just one thing you need to be as a security engineer. So with Microsoft Entra Connect Health, it enables you to maintain a reliable connection to Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Online Services. And it also provides monitoring capabilities for your key identity components, because there are some components that are key, like your users themselves, they are key. They are key components. Your devices, computers, they are key components. So it provides monitoring capabilities for those key components, and it makes the key data points about these components easily accessible. So, one thing that data has made life easy for us is that once you look at data, you can easily tell the story that the data is trying to preach, or that the data is trying to tell you. So it gives you good dashboard that makes you pinpoint on, okay, this is the issue. We can see here now, we can see a spike. You know that, okay, maybe authentication, users were trying to authenticate at this time. You can check and say, what's happening? You can go and check, okay, is there a brute force attack? Is there anything that is happening? What's happening? So those are the things that enables you to check, because it is unusual. You can see here, everything is just normal, but there's a spike here, which makes you to know that maybe something happened at this time. So that is why you need to check. So Microsoft Entra ID Connect can be installed, you can download it from this website and install it in your on-premise environment so that you can monitor the health of your infrastructure. So we can see consideration for setting up Microsoft Entra Connect Health. So you need either premium P2 or P1 license to set up Entra ID Connect Health. It is very important. And only a global administrator can deploy and configure it. So these are things that they can ask you in exam, like who can configure Microsoft Entra Connect Health? It is only a global administrator. You can confirm from Microsoft Learn. Things change every day. It could be that maybe they have created another rule that can configure it. So that is why it's good we confirm informations. We confirm information because things change every day. But we can see from the slide, only a global administrator, but it could have been changed yesterday. So that is why we have to check. So Microsoft Entra Connect Health Agent installs on each server to collect health data from ADFS server or your Active Directory domain service machine. So if you install it, it collects health from where? From an ADFS server or your Active Domain Controller service. If, for instance, you don't have ADFS, yes, it can still collect data from your Active Directory domain service at that instance. And firewall must be opened for specific IP range and TCP port. So the homework you are going to do now is go and find out, okay, what are the ports and ranges that needs to be open for Microsoft Entra Connect Health. So you need to find out that, so that if you are actually setting up an identity solution for a customer, you can tell your network guys that, Alpha, CEO, I need this port to be open, because by default, it is not good to allow any. Any is not good. It's good you tell them the specific ports instead of to allow all the ports, because allowing all the ports is like you're increasing your attack surface. So it is best you just provide the exact ports that your Connect Health needs to access instead of opening everything. Then you need to ensure that TLS inspections can be blocked, installed, or operational. So TLS inspection can block, install, or can block install. So you need to confirm all this. So PowerShell 4.0 or later is required. So if you are using PowerShell less than 4.0, then you are not ready to use Microsoft Entra Connect Health. So you're not ready to use it. That's just the way it is. So FIPS compliance encryption must be disabled. I know somebody will say, what is FIPS? Let's go and check the meaning of FIPS so that at least you will learn something. Because once you check it and you read, it'll be easier for you to remember during exam or during interview. So now, how to manage Microsoft Entra Connect Health. So to manage it, just like we saw on the other slide, you can configure notifications. You can see here, Azure AD Connect service is not starting, or maybe it's having some issues. You can configure notifications so that users can be notified when there is any downtime. Just like you can configure 2 users here. This could be maybe the IT manager and the team lead. Okay, if there's any issue, these 2 people will reach out to the team members, go and check that server, what's happening, to ensure that it is up and running. So we can see here, we have 2 Active Directory Connect servers. We have Fab VM03 and Fab VM02. It's telling you that Fab VM03 is unhealthy. So as an engineer, you are supposed to go and check, why is this server unhealthy? That should be your responsibility to ensure that it is healthy. So if the issue is from network, you tell the network team. If the issue is from the infrastructure guys and it is not within your job description to do it, you tell them, okay, this is not my JDO, this is your work, but you go and do it. They'll do it. So that's just it. So additional tasks, you can delete a server or service instance, and you can manage access with Azure role-based access control. So you can allow users or groups to access Microsoft Entra ID Connect Health. So role-based access control is very important. Let's not forget zero trust. Always verify, and you use least privilege access, because it's good you give users rights that they need. Because if an hacker now wants to hack you and they have access to your account, their major concern is this account we're hacking, what can the account do? So that is why all your users in your environment, you need to make sure you understand the rights that they have and what that their accounts can do. Because if you understand what their accounts can do, then you will be smarter than the hackers. Then if there are any rights that they have that they don't need, you remove it. You remove it. So like least privilege is very important and best we need to use if we are deploying, if we are trying to give maybe rights to people that will have access to the Entra Connect Health, because it's important. So now let's look at how to troubleshoot synchronization errors. So synchronization errors is very important, and it is good we know how to troubleshoot them, because you are not an engineer if you don't face issues. So issues is part of life. You must face problems, you must face issues in this life. But you overcoming those issues is what makes you strong. That is why if you are not praying for issues, then you are not ready. You need to pray for issues, but the one that you can overcome, not the one that will overcome you. So that's just it. So let's look at how to troubleshoot synchronization errors. So now we are looking at how to diagnose and remediate duplicate attributes in sync error. So one thing I like about AD Connect is that it will give you the exact user that is having user principal name or proxy address that is duplicate. An example is you may have, let's say, somebody like, let's say, maybe Peter. You may have Peter now in your environment, and Peter is using peter@contoso.com. And you have another person that maybe the person used peter@consoto.com. It means both of them are having the same user principal name, which is not good. It will be duplicate, you'll be flagging it. Only one will be syncing. So you can as well maybe change one person's user principal name. The other one can now be Peter dot the first capital letter of the name or something something. So depending, to avoid duplicate identity, you can use ID fix. So ID fix can help you. Maybe if you are configuring before you even set up Active Directory AD Connect, or before you set up hybrid infrastructure, that's a prerequisite that you must do, because setting up hybrid infrastructure, if you have duplicate users or duplicate user principal name, it causes error. So that's why you need to be ensured that you don't have any duplicate identity using ID fix. It helps you identify those duplicate identities and fix them. So potential errors like invalid soft match, object type mismatch, data validation failure, identity data validation failed, federated domain change error, large object, admin role conflict, admin value must be unique. So these are the errors that you see. But all these are not really hard because once you identify the errors, if the error is maybe two people are using the same name, it's very simple. Change the name of the other person and it will be fine because two people cannot be using the same name, cannot be using the same user principal name. It has to be one. So all these things is not really an issue. It's just for you to know, okay, if there is admin conflict, check what's the conflict, identify it and solve it. So that's just it. So we are going to be going to the lab now, and I'm going to start with the demonstration. But if you have any question, you can ask while I try to set up the lab. Anybody with any question? Okay, if you have any question, you can just ask. Let me check the chat if there's any question on the chat because I'm using one screen. Hello, good evening. Is it possible to ask some questions before the... Yeah, you can ask your question. So if you have any question, you can easily just unmute and ask. But I want to start the lab now. So if it looks very hard, don't worry. Once you start the lab, it's going to be easy for you to understand. So basically, this is Active Directory environments because we are trying to sync users from on-prem to the cloud. Just like you have Entra ID, where you manage users, computers. So you can also use Active Directory for user management and to even manage computers in your Active Directory. So this Active Directory now is a role that is installed on a Windows server. Let's say, for instance, for those of us that want to set up Active Directory, all you just need to do is, for instance, let me use this. This is my Active Directory server. Let me use a server that doesn't have AD to set up Active Directory so everybody will understand how to set up Active Directory. So I will just try to set up Active Directory on this file server. So let me just connect to it. So basically, this is just like an on-premise environment.
Hi,
So if you
Mr.
have any
Emmanuel.
question, you can ask. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so while you were speaking about password hash synchronization, I just want to ask, okay, now your AD has a password. Of course, you clarified it that it's not that the password is synchronized, it's the hash that is synchronized. So let's say my AD has a password. Is it possible that I can use the same password for the cloud credentials? And if so, will the hashing be the same, or will it flag it that you're having the same password on both the AD and the cloud platform? I just want to clarify that. Of course, you said the hashing is what is synchronized, not the password itself. So can I have the same password on the Active Directory and on the Microsoft Entra? And also, will the hashing be the same, or it will hash it differently? Thank you.
Okay, that's a very intelligent question, and I'm so happy that you asked that question. It shows that you really understood what I've been taught and everything. So basically, the way password hash work is like it gives you leverage to maybe for you the hashes of your password to be stored in the cloud, but it's the same password. It's the same password. Like it's the same password you use. If you are using, let's say, password one to sign in to your on-premise, to your like to your on-premise, to your system, and you want to sign into cloud, Microsoft Entra ID, you still use password one. But the only thing is just that because Microsoft now they are seeing behind, they are seeing far because they know that if they sync the actual password to the cloud, you understand? If maybe God forbid hackers have access to that password, you understand, by any means, they will have access to your real password. But even if God forbid anything happen, they have access to your maybe they hack maybe your infrastructure or so. They cannot see the password, they can only see the hashes, and they cannot use those hashes for anything. So the only thing is just that you are using the same password, but the password that is stored in the cloud so that will enable you sign in. So what it is that if you provide your password, hashes is just like maybe for instance, your name is, let's say, maybe I'm just giving an instance, maybe your name is Joshua and I want to write Joshua. I can write Joshua with Chinese. You understand? If for instance, I want to sign in and I put Joshua, there will be something that will help me decode Joshua to match it with the Chinese so that I don't need to use the Chinese to sign in. I can just use my name. So Microsoft has an authentication mechanism that converts that hashes during authentication to your real password. But what is actually stored in Entra ID is the hashes of your password. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes.
Okay, so now this is a server, a Windows server. If I come to configure this server, we are going to see that this server
Madam,
is
I have a question,
actually,
please.
yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, please, this server that you are trying to set up now, can we, if we want to have our own AD environment or on-prem or like what you have right now, can we do this using an Azure virtual machine or we need to have a Hyper-V like we have?
Yeah, you can do it using your Azure virtual machine, but I will advise you set up Hyper-V in your system, in your computer. So just set up Hyper-V in your computer, create your VMs so that because
Okay,
if you are using Azure now, they will be billing you. You
okay,
understand? So it's better you just use your system to configure
okay.
Hyper-V.
All
So
right.
this is
Thank
a
you.
server. I'm assuming that I want to install ADDS role on this server. So this could be your own server. This could be like a virgin server that doesn't have any role, nothing on it. So if you want to add any role to a server, you just come to manage. You click on add roles and features. ADDS is a role that you add to a server. Like we made mention to the other time, ADDS is local. It is not cloud. It is local. Cloud is Entra ID, but ADDS now you are managing it yourself. But Microsoft Entra ID, Microsoft just tells you, okay, just buy Entra ID premium license and buy and just have access to Entra ID. But Active Directory now, you have to set it up yourself. People will need to be managing it. This is the virtual server. There are some organizations that have physical server. Let's not confuse ourselves. Physical server and virtual server, they are very similar. Like they are the same thing. The only difference is one is physical. You can see it, you can touch it. But the other one is virtual. But it's the same thing. It's the same thing. If you can manage virtual server, you can manage physical server. So let's not confuse ourselves. So if you go next, you can now have the opportunity to select any role of your choice. You can see here, you can select Active Directory Certificate Service. Like my CTO will always tell me, I know some of you will know her, my former CTO. She will say that, read all these things so that you will understand what they do. Active Directory Certificate Service now is a rule that you can add on a Windows server. This is used to create certificate authority and related rules that allow you to issue and manage certificates used in variety of applications. So if you want to have a local certificate authority, then this is what you do. You can go for an interview and what they need is somebody that knows PKI, private key infrastructure. If they're asking of that, that means it's certificate. That's what you'll be handling. Then the one now that we're talking about is Active Directory Domain Service. If I click on it now, then I can add Active Directory Domain Services role to this server. Remember, it is a rule. If I click on Add Feature, it will check it that Active Directory Domain Service has been added. If I do next, I will now see other features that comes with it, like group policy management. You can use group policy management work with Active Directory Domain Service because it's group policy that you can use to manage computers and users, like their settings. Like maybe you want to configure settings like wallpaper, you want to configure computer screensaver or so. You can use group policy to do that. So you can see other features that comes with it. So you can just do next and install. So if we do next now, we have to do next, then we can now install the role. So once you install the role, it means that you are installing ADDS role on a physical server. I'm just showing us how to install it for those that maybe want to set up their Hyper-V environment and add ADDS to their server. So this is just what you do. Then after doing this, it means that you have Active Directory. So let me switch back to my domain controller. Let me show us how ADDS looks like. So if I come back to my AD now, this is my Active Directory environment. If I want to manage users, I want to create users, and I want to create computers, I will just go to tools. Like every mechanic, if they want to work, they have different tools that they use. If they want to lose tire, they have the one they use. If they want to lose your maybe the shaft, they have the one they use. If they want to lose your engine. So as an identity engineer, if you want to create users or you want to manage users, you have tools that you can use. You can use Active Directory Admin Center. You can use Active Directory Users and Computers to manage users. So if I click on Active Directory Users and Computers now, we are going to get the same feeling that we get with Entra ID. So if I maximize this page and I collapse this precise global now, which is my domain, I'm going to see OUs. Just like Chinke, I remember when Chinke was teaching, Chinke taught us how administrative units work. So administrative unit is just like organization units that you can use to group your users for proper management and to apply group policy. So here now, you can create an OU to manage your users. Let's say, for instance, I want to create an OU for cloud security users. I'll just right click and go to new, create an organization unit. Then I'll call it, let's say, cloud security OU. So I'm calling this OU cloud security OU. Then I click OK. So with this OU created, I can now create users inside this OU by just right clicking and saying new. Then I can create users. Let's not forget, in Entra ID, if you want to create users, you just go to Entra ID, click on users, then create users. It's still the same thing. It's still almost the same concept with On-Prem. So if you come down to user now, you can now provide the username. Let's say the user I want to create is Oluchi. Let's say I want to create Oluchi. Let's say Oluchi Thomas. So this is the name of the user. Just like you create users in Entra ID, you can create users in your local ID. I want to call this person, let's say the user principal name, I want it to be Oluchi. Oluchi at preciseglobal.com. Then I do next. It will ask me to provide password. I can now uncheck that, okay, password never expires. I can just do it like this. Then give her a password. Then click next. Click finish. So this is it. I've created a user in my on-premise Active Directory. And I can also create a group, just like we created group in Entra ID. If I want to create a group, I'll just select the group settings here and create a group. So I can say cloud security user group. So I want to call this group cloud security user group. So I'll just click on. So in creating a group, just like in Entra ID, you can create a distribution group. So this distribution group here now is just like M365 group. M365 group, but in on-prem, it is called distribution group. So if you are unmuted, please mute your mic. And you can also create scope for your group. Like your group can be global, it can be universal, it can be domain local. So if your group is universal, let's say for instance, you have, let's say Federation Trust with different domains, then universal group will be good so that you can add users across different environments to that group. Because if a group is domain local, it means that it's only users in that local domain that will have access that can join that group. So we can just read up on it. So we'll just click OK. So we have created a security group. So the next thing I want us to create again is I want us to create a contact. So you can create a contact also, just like you can create a contact in Exchange Online. I can just call this contact, let's say Peter. So Active Directory is an on-premise identity management system, just like Entra ID. You can create users, you can create groups, you can even create computers. You can join computers to the domain, just like you can join computers to Microsoft Entra ID. So the last name could be Peter Paul. Then, so the last name could be Peter Paul. Then the display name could be, let's say, Peter. Let's just say Peter Paul. So that's it. So we can just click OK, and you have created a contact. So that's just how it works. So now let's look at the main goal of today. We want to establish hybrid connectivity. We want to install AD Connect so that we can sync all these users here now to Microsoft Entra ID. So if we want to do that, we need to sign into our Entra ID environment so that we can download Microsoft Entra Connect. So to sign into our environment, let's just see, let the browser load. So I'll say, start without your data. Please, if you know that person that is unmuted, help me mute the person, please. So we start and confirm browsing. Then here now, just like you do, you go to your browser, then you go to, you can use cmd.mx, or you just go through office.com. Office.com. So from office.com, we'll log into our M365 environment. So we'll sign in with our credential. I'll sign in with my own. So it's not best practice you save your password on browsers. So don't save your password on browsers, because someone can have access to that system and just log in and just have access to your password. So it's best practice, don't save your password on browsers. So now we have signed into office.com. All I just need from office.com is just the admin center. So we can just check for apps. So we can go to the admin center. So it's still loading. So another way again you can access Microsoft Entra ID admin center is from cmd.mx, or you can even go directly to entra.microsoft.com. But let's just do cmd.mx. So hit enter. So wait for it to load. So cmd.ms will take you to a portal where you can choose to sign into any Microsoft admin center like Entra ID and the likes. So cmd.mx, just have it at the, you can keep it very handy with you. So I want to access Microsoft Entra ID. So that is where I can download my Entra ID Connect agent. So I'll click on yes. So I will need to provide OTP. I need to sign in. I need to provide multi-factor authentication, which is best practice when you are accessing sensitive areas in your environment. So it's good you provide MFA. Always verify. Trust nobody. So those are the things that you need to come to your mind as engineers. So now this is it. We have now logged into Microsoft Entra ID, which we are all familiar with. Everybody here is familiar with Microsoft Entra ID because from the beginning of this training, we have been talking about Microsoft Entra ID, Microsoft Entra ID, Microsoft Entra ID. And now we just brought Active Directory because Active Directory is local. We want our students to understand hybrid identity because you can find yourself in a bank environment because most banks, they use hybrid. They don't use only cloud, only Microsoft Entra ID. They combine on-prem and cloud so that you don't get lost. Like, okay, I've not heard Active Directory before. I've not heard this before. Just like the way we created users in Microsoft, we created users in Active Directory. Just like you can create use, we created Oluchi as a user, we created Paul as a contact, and we created a security group. The same way that you can also create users in the cloud. So everything is just the same, but it's good you understand the two so that at least in case you don't know where you find yourself, if you find yourself in a cloud only environment, then you are good. But if you now find yourself in an on-premise environment where they have Active Directory, then you need to know this one. On-Prem AD. So let me just let's download AD Connect. So if you want to download AD Connect, all you just need to do is, if you collapse health and monitoring now, you are going to see options for signing log, but that's not what we are after today. So I'm looking for hybrid identity. Where will I get that? No, not from identity governance. I think it should be somewhere here. Entra Connect. You can see Microsoft change every day. So that is why, as engineers, you need to always be checking. Imagine I'm on a customer call now and I tell the customer and the customer is on the call that I'm now trying to test. It will look as if maybe the person is not competent. So that's why it's good you always check Microsoft documentation day to day, so that when you jump on call, it will not look like it's on the call that you now discover that Microsoft has changed this thing. No, it's no more there again. They have changed it. So it's good you are 3 times ahead of any changes. So if you click on Entra Connect now, we have 2 options. You can use Cloud Sync and you can use Connect Sync if you want to sync users from on-premise to the cloud. If we look at this page, what is Cloud Sync? Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync is a new offering from Microsoft designed to meet and accomplish your hybrid identity goals for synchronization of users, groups, contact to Microsoft Entra ID. It accomplishes this by using Microsoft Entra Cloud Provisioning Agent instead of Microsoft Entra Connect application. We can see that Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync works with an agent, but Microsoft Entra Cloud Connect works with an application, which we are going to install. So the ball is now in your court to suggest to your clients, okay, which one suits their business needs. So depending is the one you use. If we view the comparison now, we are going to see how both of them compare to each other. So you will see the comparison between Cloud Sync and Entra Connect. So most times, if you come to Microsoft website like this, it's good you read, you check, because as an engineer, the organization is depending on you, that you know what you are doing. So it is good you really check to ensure that at least you understand it very well. So we have Cloud Sync and we have Connect Sync. So Cloud Sync now for sync cycle, this one happened within 10 minutes. Why Connect Sync happened within 30 minutes? Which one is better? Cloud Sync. Because you can't compare. That means it takes 30 minutes for changes to synchronize to the cloud. But this one, it takes 10 minutes. So if you are discussing with a client now and the client wants something that will be syncing fast, then you tell them, why not deploy Cloud Sync and Connect Sync, so that at least your synchronization will be happening faster. So those are the things you check. You can see connect to single and multiple on-premise AD. This one can do it. This one can do it. This one can connect to multiple on-premise AD environment. Both of them can do it. But Cloud Sync now can connect to multiple disconnected AD environments. But Connect Sync cannot do it. It is lightweight agents, but this one is not lightweight. It has multiple active agents for high availability, yes, but this one doesn't have, like I made mention the other time, even if you have 2 AD connects in your environment, one has to be in staging, then the other one has to be in production. Both of them cannot be in production at the same time. One must be in production, one must be in staging. But with Cloud Sync, all the agents can be in production. In case if one goes down, the other one can pick. So it can connect to LDAP directory, but Cloud Connecting cannot do it. So that is why you need to understand what this can do and what this cannot do. So that in case maybe the client is telling you that we have LDAP directories that we want our users to be connecting to or our applications to connect to, then you suggest this. So depending, we can see it supports password hash. This one supports password hash. This one supports group password write back and group write back. Perfect. Both of them support it. This one supports provisioning on demand. This one support provisioning on demand. So those are the things you tell your clients. Okay, this is what you suggest. So as an identity architect, you suggest all these things to them. So let's install AD Connect. So if we want to install AD Connect now, we just click on Connect Sync here. Since we want to use connecting, we don't want to use Cloud Sync. We have seen the comparison and we want to go with Connect Sync instead of Cloud Sync. So we'll download the AD Connect from here and start the installation. So let's just wait for it to load. I don't know what's wrong with my network. I'm using a VM. I don't know why it's now slow like this. Yeah, ask your question, please.
All right. Sorry, I just saw you are doing the on-prem on using your laptop. I don't know how you got to that place that you are setting up this data now. You're setting up the username and all that, because as
And
if you have already set the environment already before you start creating this. So how can we set that on our own system, local system as well? That is where my confusion is.
okay, okay. I'm going to show you that after this class, how you can set up that in your environment. So I'll show you that. Don't worry, I'll show you that. So now,
Okay, no
if
All
you
right.
want
problem.
to
So,
if you want
All
to
right, please.
download your Entra Connect Health, you can
Please, I
download
have
it
a
from
question.
here. So you can go ahead. We are close, so you can ask your question. Go 1 to 6. We
Uh,
are
uh,
rounding up.
all
So go
right.
ahead. Ask your
Uh,
question.
all right. Thank you, sir. Yes, just a quick recap. Um, because I'm a kind of I didn't get the point clearly. You said AD Connect and Cloud Sync, the one that is of higher speed, the one that has a better speed workflow. You know. So I would like to really know before we proceed, please.
Okay. So when I talk about synchronization speed, if for instance you create a user in your on-premise environment, so for synchronization speed now, it determines how long it will take the synchronization to happen without you forcing it. So for Entra Connect is 30 minutes, but for Cloud Connect is 10 minutes. That one is faster. It synchronizes recent changes every 10 minutes. While Connect Sync synchronizes recent changes every 30 minutes. So if the company or the organization is looking at, let's say, the fastest one, then they will look at Microsoft Entra Cloud Sync. But you know that it's not about being fast. Like from my presentation, you can use both of them in the same environment. You can be using Cloud Sync, you can be using Entra Connect. So you can use the two. You can use the two. So that speed I was talking about is for synchronization. How long it takes for a new object to sync to the cloud? 30 minutes. For Entra Connect. While for Cloud Connect, that one is actually 10 minutes. So that's it.
Yeah.
So we have successfully
Okay.
downloaded Entra ID Connect agent. So if you want to download it, let me go over it again. So once you log into Microsoft Entra ID, let me minimize this page. Let me refresh this page so I can show us how we download it. So in case maybe you want to do it on your own, then you can as well just do it. So let's not look at it that it's too hard. Once you go through the videos, 1, 2, 3, and you read, you are going to understand all these things, which I'm going to be dropping a link to Microsoft Learn that will help us really get all these things. And we'll get it from the explanation I'm giving, and from maybe you check some sources, you will understand how Active Directory work. So let me refresh again. To those asking questions, thank you. So let me just go to the agent, what we just downloaded. I don't know why let me see the network I'm connected to, because I don't know why it's just slow like this.
Okay, sir. Sorry, let me quickly ask this my question before, since it's still loading, please. Hello, sir.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay,
Yeah, ask your question.
like the way we create user on either M365 admin center or Entra Connect, it's like almost the same way you do on Active Directory, that is on premise. But what I'm asking is like, can we still
Yeah,
create a group user, like a bulk user on Active Directory, that is on premise, just like the way we do on cloud? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you can create bulk users in on-prem. Maybe if you have a contract, maybe you want to work for a government agency and they have like maybe 200 users per department, you can use scripts to create. Yeah, it's possible to create bulk users in on-prem. 80% of the things you can do, let me say 60% of the things you can do in Entra ID, you can do it in Active Directory. So basically, the essence of these classes, you see these users that are here, we want them to be synchronized to Entra ID. We want to be seeing them in Entra ID. Users created in on-prem, that's just hybrid. This is local environments. Entra ID is cloud. We want to be seeing users that we have here in the cloud. So that's just what this lab is all about. So now I've downloaded AD Connect agent. We saw the way we download it. So if you want to download it, you come to Entra Admin Center. Then you click on download the latest Entra provisioning agent. So you can always download it. And aside from this place, you can even go online and search for Entra Connect Sync latest version. You download it. So let's launch the installation. So if you want to install it, you can right click and click on install. So it will prepare the installation. So it will run like this. So once it's, we're going to see how we'll configure password hash synchronization and all those things. At least we're going to see it live. I'm going to explain.
Excuse me, I have a question, please.
Yeah, ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, I want you to tell us, explain to us what a password writeback is. And then again, if you have on-prem, must you connect a domain? Must you connect a domain for you to sync it to the cloud?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I like that. So password, let me start with password writeback. So password writeback now is what enables you to write back password, both sides, from on-prem to the cloud and from cloud to your on-premise. But for you to use password writeback, you need Entra ID Premium P2 license. So the way password writeback is, let me give you a use case scenario. Maybe in Entra ID, you sync your user from on-premise to the cloud. It means that your users now, their account is dominant in your on-premise environment. So for you to reset their password, if you reset their password in Entra ID, it will not sync back to the domain controller. That's just it. If you don't want to sign in to, what are they calling it, to maybe the Office 365, they can sign in, but if they want to sign into their system, it will not work. But the way password writeback work, as an admin, even if you reset their password from Entra ID, it will send that the changes will synchronize to your Active Directory. So password writeback, like the name implies, it writes back password from Entra ID to your on-premise environment. But for you to use it, you need Entra ID Premium license. So password writeback is good in terms of self-service password reset. Once you enable self-service password reset, whereby you are giving users the opportunity to reset their password themselves, then password writeback is important so that once they reset their password, they can still use same password if they are in hybrid environment to sign into their system. It will work. Then for the other one, which you made mention of, I've forgotten your second question.
Yes, I said for you to connect to Microsoft Entra ID. Well,
Okay, the domain name. The domain name.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. So for the domain name now, if you don't configure your domain name in your on-premise environment, that means what it means is that if your users want to, the user principal name of your users will be carrying a different domain name. Then in Entra ID, you carry a different domain name, but it is best practice. The same domain name you are using for Entra ID, you use it in your on-premise environment, which I'm going to show us. I'm going to show us. It's good. If you don't do it, you can still install AD Connect, but it is good you use the same domain so that users can use that domain to sign in to their system and as well as the cloud. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Please help me pick the call. Tell her I'm in train. You can go and see. Okay, so I will just click on agree because of course, you have to agree to anything you want to do. You have to agree. If you don't agree, there's no way you can do anything. You have to accept it. So as it is now, you can use express settings or you can use customize. So the way express settings work is more or less like you are okay with the default settings. But me, I'm not okay with the default settings. So I want to customize my own settings. So I will use customize. I will not use express settings. I will use customize. So I'll just use customize. So if you want to use customize now, you are going to specify what you want to install. So you can specify the SQL server. If you have one existing, you can use an existing SQL server. But me, this is a new environment. So I'll just click on install. So I'll just install the Active Directory, the Entra Connect server. So in your own environment, if the organization already have an existing SQL server that they are using, then you can use it. So we'll just continue. Okay, no problem. So we'll just wait for it to install. So I'm going to show us how to set up Hyper-V before we end this class. For those of us that are really interested in learning it, so I'll show us. So I just hope the installation completes faster. So, okay, so we'll just be waiting for it to install. Sometimes it can take time, but let's just give it time to install. So let me check. So this one is still installing. So just it will install. So while this is installing, let me show us how we can enable Hyper-V on our computer. So if you want to enable Hyper-V on your computer, from the BIOS, you need to ensure that virtualization is checked. So if virtualization is checked, all you need to do is to come to search. If virtualization is enabled, you can come to search here, type control panel. So from control panel, you can click on programs. So from programs, you can now click on turn on or off Windows feature here. So let me go over it again. You click on search, you search for control panel. Then you click on programs. Then you click on turn on Windows features on and off. Once you click on it, you are going to see several Windows features that you can turn on. So you just collapse Hyper-V. Then you select Hyper-V here. Once you select it and click OK, that means you have enabled Hyper-V in your environment. So that is just how to enable Hyper-V on your system. So what Hyper-V does is that it enables you to create virtual machines that will share the resources of your hardware. This is your system now. If my system is, let's say my system is, let's say like, where is this PC? Let's say my system is 476 gig now of memory. That means the VMs will be sharing this hardware. You can see my system is already full, 260 gig. Nah. So like, you understand? So it will be sharing the hardware. That means my VMs will be using this same C drive and it will be using the RAM also. So that's just it. You just turn on the feature. Once you turn on the feature and click OK, you are good. Then if you have any error, reach out to us on the community. We will be there to help you. So now the synchronization, the method is set now. So we can see how we can select sign-in methods. You can use password hash, you can use pass-through, you can use federation, you can use federated with ping federated, you can do not configure. But me, I want to use password hash because at least I don't want to be deploying, I don't want to install agents in my on-premise environment and be configuring ADFS server farm. So let me just use pass-through. And I want to also enable single sign-on. So I'll just do next. Then it will ask me for my M365 global admin account. I will now put it. So if you are setting up AD Connect, you need to have an account that has global admin privilege to your Entra ID. Click on add. Click on add again. Click on add. Then you click on close. So we can't sign you in, right? So all you just need to do, you close, you go back, you come again, you do next. So let me add this. So I'll put my email address again. Yeah. Then I click on sign in. So once it's signed in now, it will now check. So we'll just wait for it to go. So that's just how you set up AD Connect. You select your sign-in options. If you want to use password hash, you use. If you want to use pass-through, you use. So let me click on add preciseglobal.com.ng. So you can use your administrator password to set up the AD Forest account. So you click OK. So this is how to set up AD Connect. Yeah. So we'll just wait. So it has been added. So once you add it, just like the way you connected to your Entra ID, it's still the same way you still need to connect your directory to your on-premise environment. So we do next. So it will now retrieve the schemas. Then before we now go to the next, which is Microsoft Entra sign-in. Yeah, so here now, this is where your question came in, the person that asks about domain. If, for instance, this preciseglobal.com.ng, it is added in my environment and it is also verified in Microsoft Entra ID. Because it's verified, that is why it's showing verified here. But if it's not verified in Microsoft Entra ID, it will show not verified. So if, for instance, the domain I have locally is maybe .local, it's still okay, it's not bad. But the only thing is just that if I'm syncing my users to Entra ID, they will have crash landing. The user principal name that they will carry will be .onmicrosoft.com. They won't carry any domain name because on-prem, I didn't use any domain name for them. Like I'm using .local, which is not verified in Entra ID. So here, we'll just click next. Then this is where you can now decide as an engineer, which OU do you want to sync and which OU you don't want to sync. If I say sync all domains and OU, it means I want to sync everything. But it is not best practice to sync everything. So it is better you sync selected OUs and domain. So I'll just say sync selected OUs and domain, then uncheck this guy. So the only OU I want to sync is Cloud Security OU. I don't want to sync any other OU, just Cloud Security OU alone. So you can sync one OU. It's not best practice to sync everything. Just sync the OU that you want to sync. Then we do next. So now you can now use any attribute you want. You can provide uniquely identified attribute for your users also. Or you can say let Azure manage the source anchor. So most times I just let Azure manage the source anchor. So you do next. So for filtering, you can leave it since you have already selected the OU that you want to synchronize. Then for optional features, you can add more optional features. Like if you want to enable password write back, you can check it here. If you want to enable group write back, you can check it here. So depending on what you want to configure, but I don't want to enable group write back. So I'll just uncheck it. Password write back, I can enable it. If we check it now, by enabling password write back, password changes that originate within Entra ID will be written back to your on-premise directory. Just like as I was trying to explain, if you change any password in Entra ID, it will write it back to on-premise and on-premise directory. But note, you need premium license. It's not free. You need premium license to use password write back. So I can leave it since I have the license. But in your own case, if you don't have it, you can uncheck it so you don't get errors. So we do next. So once we do next, we can go to single sign-on. So we'll just wait for it to install. So this is just basically how to configure AD Connect. So while this is running, you can now decide to say, okay, I want to start the synchronization process when configuration complete, or you can say enable staging mode. If you already have an existing AD Connect, then you can just put this one in staging mode. But because this is the only AD Connect we have now, we'll just start synchronization process immediately. So I'll click on install. So we'll just watch it install. So while it's installing, we can go and be checking the other server that we want to add ADDS to. Let's see how far. So if we come here, file server. So ADDS role now has been added to this server. So the next thing you do after adding ADDS role, you promote it. So if you don't promote the server to a domain controller, it will just have the role installed, but it is not a domain controller. So you need to promote it. If you don't promote it, it's not yet a domain controller. So if I want to explain it, it's just like somebody that is made a captain in the Nigerian army. But if you don't have that badge, that captain badge, it means you are not a captain. People are just calling you captain for mouth. And captain for mouth doesn't mean that you can control anybody. Until you have that badge, that is when soldiers will respect you. So any server that you just add ADDS role to without promoting it to a domain controller, that server it's not a domain controller, it's not a captain, it's not a controller. It's just there, it's just having the role. You can only use it to create users, but it is not a domain controller. If you come to, I've added ADDS role to it now. If I go back to my domain controller VM here, if I come here and I go to users and computers, if I click on domain controllers, I only have one domain controller here. That guy, because I've added ADDS role to it, doesn't make it a domain controller until I promote it. It's just like somebody that they are calling team lead, but they have not promoted it to become a team lead. You're not a team lead. Even if people are calling you team lead, it doesn't make you a team lead. Even if they are calling you pilot, that doesn't mean that they will go and give you flights to drive until you are trained to be a pilot. That's when you drive. So the same thing applies. Even if you have added a role to a server, until you promote it to a domain controller, that's when it becomes a domain controller. So we'll just go we'll go back to our server. Let's promote it because we want it to actually be a domain controller. So we click here and click on promote. So you can have two domain controllers in your environment for redundancy. One can be primary and the other one will be secondary. So now, because we already have an existing domain, I can just click on add domain to an existing domain because preciseglobal.com is already existing in the environment. So you can do add a new forex in your own case because you are setting up a new Active Directory. So it is best you select add a new forex because as it is, you are setting up a fresh environment. You can use your name. You can use agk.com. You can use olamilekon.com. You can use paul.com. You can use itoje.com. You can use any name of your choice as it suits you to set up your domain. You can use the name of your future business. Those of us that want to go into IT business, like maybe you want to be doing IT consulting, you can just say peterconsulting.com.ng or agkconsulting.com.ng as your domain name. Like we are told to dream big. You can dream big. It's not a crime to dream big. So you do next. Then from here, you can now set up, if you want the server to be a DNS server, this is where you set it up. If you want it to be a global catalog server, this is where you set it up. So global catalog server, it has all the attributes saved in its server. So if, for instance, you want to deploy a read-only domain controller, you can deploy it as the case may be. So deploying ADDS is very simple. If you go to YouTube and you just say, I want to install ADDS on a server, you'll see a lot of videos there to install ADDS on a server. So let's not look at it to be hard. It's very easy. It's not really hard. So we'll just give it a password. So you put the next password. So this password, you need to remember it because if, God forbid, your domain controller crash and you want to boot it to safe mode, you need this disaster recovery password. If maybe, for instance, you want to do authoritative restore, or so you want to do, maybe your domain controller crash and you want to boot it to safe mode so that you can have access to your users and groups, you need this password. So we do Nest. So you can decide to update DNS delegation, but in my case, I don't need that. So any domain controller, you can allow it to synchronize because we only have this domain controller now. Adibin, I have 2 domain controllers we show here. So in your own case, you can set up your own like this. So basically, Active Directory is good you have 2 domain controllers because if you have only one, it's not the best. What if anything happened to that server? It crash. What will happen? What it means is that your domain controller is gone and users will not have access. So we'll just be configuring the other one. But before I click on install, I will just allow this guy to finish because I don't want any issue, because it might make this to fail. So most times, if you are doing any changes in your environment, ensure that you finish with one before you do another one. Not that you want to do everything at the same time. If you are doing everything at the same time, you may be having errors and you will not be able to trace your errors. That is why even in project management, everything is done in phases. So I'm trying to deploy a secondary domain controller and I'm installing AD Connect. So it is not good. I just install this and AD Connect is installing at the same time. So it's better I wait. Since I've seen that all the prerequisite check is successful, it's better I wait. So that at least once the other one install, I continue. So I'll just minimize this guy and come back here. So let me come back here. So if you have any question, you can ask. So feel free to ask. Like,
Yes,
questions are welcome.
I have a question, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. If you install the first domain controller and then you want to have the second domain controller, just as you said that it is a good practice, do you need to activate or configure failover for domain controllers?
Yeah, for domain controllers, it's automatically configured to be that way. If, for instance, now let's say anything happened to your server, maybe it crashed. Like one of the customer I support, one of their server crashed. So the hardware crashed, like it couldn't come up again. So thank God they have a secondary domain controller. Had it been they did not have secondary domain controller, what it means is that users will not be able to authenticate again. So the only advantage, so for that one you made mention, secondary domain controller, like failover. Failover is good. Maybe for instance, maybe when you are doing maybe database, and maybe for instance, in as in clients is interfacing with that database, and you want them to be able to always have access to their data, then you can do failover. So that in case failover is still the same thing. But for domain controller, that one we can just call it high availability because it is not failing over to the secondary domain controller if anything happened. The only thing is just that if the primary domain controller goes down, the secondary domain controller takes responsibility until that one comes up. But for failover, if the other one may not be working, but if, for instance, the one of the database goes down, it automatically fail over to the second database. That's just the way failover works. But for Active Directory, the secondary and the primary will be working at the same time. If the primary goes down, that one will now like, okay, I will help. Since you are down, let me help you. But for failover is if this one goes down, it failovers to this. This one picks up immediately. That's just how it is. I hope I was able to answer your question.
Yes, you are. What I could get from what you answered in secondary domain, you don't need to activate anything like failover.
Yeah,
You don't need
yeah,
to. Okay,
yeah.
thank
You don't need. You don't need.
All
So
right.
thank God.
I have a
Yeah, go
question.
ahead. Go ahead.
Please, can
Yeah.
will you drop all your slides, the one you used to lecture today?
Why not? I'll drop it. I'll drop it. I'll drop it.
All right, no
So
problem. Thank you.
let's know that time. We just have 10 minutes more. So if you have any question, ask your question because once it's 6, we need to keep to time. Time is gold. Time is of essence. So once it's 6, we're ending the class. So we have configured AD Connect. So let me click on exit. We will now go and check Entra ID, let's see if those users that we synced, like, we selected this group. What's the name of that group again? Oh, we selected this OU to sync to the cloud. Yeah, please help me answer this call. So let's confirm if this group that we selected, all of them are all in the cloud. So let me go to Entra ID. This is the moment of truth. Moment of truth, because this one now, this is where you people will know that. This is where you people will know that, though. At least you have done your own. You will now check. So since this guy is giving me issue, so let me just do something, because I'm connecting from my VM. I don't know why the network is a bit slow, but let me just see, because I want us to confirm that user now that we synced, if the user is currently in the cloud. So we'll just wait for it to load, because the whole essence of this lab is we want to synchronize users from local Active Directory to Entra ID, because Entra ID is robust. Like that one, you don't need to say, you don't need to do anything. Everything is already there for you. So since my VM is messing up, let me minimize. Okay, I think it's coming up. So let me just wait. I don't know why this is taking time to load, even if it's oh, thank God. So if we come to users, yeah, good evening, good evening.
Yes, please, I have a quick question.
Yeah, please ask your question.
Yeah, so what if at the time of configuration with password hashtag, I didn't select single sign-on? How do I rectify that?
That's a very good question. We are going to see how we can always rectify all the, you can always rectify that. All you just need to do is to rerun the AD Connect again. Once you run the AD Connect, you can now select that option, which I'm going to show us. So now, what's the name of that user again?
Yeah, thank you.
The name of that user is Oluchi. Let's see if we have Oluchi here. Oluchi. If we don't see Oluchi, then we need to go and ask her where she went to. So did we see Oluchi? Oluchi, right? Okay. Let me look for Oluchi. OL. Okay, Oluchi Thomas. This is Oluchi Thomas. So Oluchi Thomas now is now here. She's in the cloud. So this is Oluchi Thomas. So if you want to confirm, if you screw like this, on-premise sync, yes. So when you see on-premise sync, yes, it means that that account is synced from on-prem. So on-premise sync, yes, means that the account is synced from on-prem. So the advantage of syncing users to Entra ID is, as this Oluchi is now, as a lady, you can assign license to Oluchi. You can add Oluchi to a cloud-only group. Here now, if I come to groups, I'm going to see that group I created. That one I created is going to be here. Oluchi can exist in my groups in Microsoft Entra ID, and Oluchi can also exist in Microsoft 365 groups. So the only advantage of cloud syncing users is so that they can one of the advantage rather, so that at least those on-premise users can enjoy features, cloud features like single sign-on and the likes. So that's just one big advantage. So if we come to all groups, let's see if that group has synchronized. Let's see if that group we created have synchronized. Before I will now show us what was asked. So what's the name of that group? Again, crowd security user group. You can see it here. This is it. Forgive my intonation. Cloud security user group. So let me move this guy up so that I can show. So this is it. Cloud security user group. If we come like this now, you see the settings of the group. You can see what's the source, Windows Server AD. All these ones are cloud only. So I can add Oluchi to any cloud only group if I like. So I can just come here to maybe I want to add that to compliance test user. I can click on compliance test user and add Oluchi to compliance test user. So you can always do that. So that's just the advantage. You are syncing users from on-prem to the cloud. If you want to sync users, you need to use Entra ID Connect to do that. So let me just add her to this group. Then once I add her, we're going to just do some troubleshooting on AD Connect before we go for the day. Because there are some things you need to do. There are some troubleshooting that we need to just be aware of in AD Connect. Apologies in case maybe I'm too fast. I'm very sorry. I'm apologizing because we need to keep to time. And this topic is a very big topic that because I know the recording will be available for us to watch. So if I want to add a member, let me go to all members. So this group is a dynamic group. So because the group is a dynamic group, I won't be able to add members. So let me look for a group that is an assigned group, that have assigned group. So if you want to confirm, you can see, it's not this group now as it is a dynamic group. So let me look for another group that I can add users to, because I want to add Oluchi to a cloud only group. So let me just do, which other group do I have here? Let me add that to this marketing group. This marketing group, so that maybe she's a marketer. I want her to be bringing customers for me because she's a lady. So when customers see her, they'll come and buy my license and do business with me. So I'll just select members here.
Very good business plan.
Yes, so because everything is strategy. So we'll
Married
just go.
woman, no, it's a married woman.
Yeah, she's a married woman. Yeah, she can work now. She can still use no, I'm just saying that normally in life, people like ladies get favor very well. Customers always want to do business with them. You understand that kind of thing. So it's good you put them in forefront. Like maybe you're looking for customers and the likes. So you can always they can always help you bring business normal. They can always help you bring business. So let me check. I just have a lot of dynamic groups here. So that's just it. So basically, you can add an on-premise user to a group. You can add an on-premise user to a group from that is cloud only. So let me use M365 group. At least that one will be. Let me use precise markets. Let me see if she's already here. Members. So sometimes it could be that my network is a bit, because I'm using a VM and the network is not so strong. But thank God, at least it even allowed me to share my screen and teach. So at least give God the glory. So let's wait for this to load. Okay, now direct members. So we'll soon be done with the class. Okay. Who is logged in? Okay, it's okay. Add members. So let me add Oluchi, because I wonder why I was not seeing add members. Abi, it was graded. So sometimes you can encounter things like this. Don't be too nervous. Just relax and calm your mind. It will always work, even if it doesn't work that day. Later, it may still work, and it may still not work, but just relax. So Oluchi. So we're adding Oluchi here. So we click select. So we have added her to this group. So you see one advantage, you can create a user on-prem and add the user to a group in the cloud. So the question someone asks, let's see how we can configure. Maybe we have done AD Connect and there are some changes we need to do, like some configuration we need to reset. So if you install AD Connect now, once you click on Windows key here, where I'm clicking on, you will see all the application you have installed. Once you install AD Connect, it creates a folder called Azure AD Connect, which is now Entra ID. Entra ID, but they are still using Azure Connect. So somebody can write a recommendation to Microsoft that I installed this, it's showing Azure, change it to Entra. I believe they'll work on it. So if you want to do any changes to your current configuration, so all you need to do is to double click on this guy, this Azure AD Connect, the main installation that you installed. So this synchronization service, this one helps you to view syncs as they are happening. So let me just open this. Let's start with this before we go to the other one, so that at least we'll understand how it works. Synchronization service. We'll see how synchronization service work, how it helps us to manage the sync process in our environment, and how you can even see errors in your synchronization. So this is everything that has happened today. You can see here, we have full imports, we have full synchronization, we have export, we have export here. So if you click on this guy here, you will see that there's no update. This one now, there are 5 ads. So add means that there are 5 additions. So if you click on the 5 ads here, then you can see what got added. You can see here, DC got added, Paul, which is this Paul again is a contact. It got added. Cloud security group got added. Oluchi got added. Let's say you're having errors in your synchronization and you want to confirm why you're having that errors. You can come to Synchronization Service Manager to see what is happening. Why? Because sometimes somebody can tell you, I create a user for 3 days. The user have no sync to Entra ID. You can come here. There could be an error. There could be something that is making, if there's error now, you see synchronization errors here. It will tell you that, okay, this is the error. This is why the user is not syncing. So with Synchronization Service Manager, you can monitor the sync process in your environment. As you run any sync, it will show. You can come here to manage full sync. You can check all the updates, let's say somebody got married. Maybe Oluchi got married and she got married to Uche. And she's changing her name from Oluchi Thomas to Oluchi Uche. If you change the name from the AD, if you run maybe Delta Sync or Initial Sync, you will see rename here. You will see that her name has changed and it will reflect in the cloud. So any changes you do on-prem, because of the synchronization in place, it always sync to the cloud. So I will just open AD Connect 2 so that we can actually view so that the question that was asked, we can answer it. So we'll run this AD Connect as an admin. So once we run it as an admin, we will now see how we can configure other settings here. Please, if you are not muted, unmute your mic, please. I'm hearing some Yoruba voices there. Please, let's mute our mic. So from here now, we can see here, if you open this synchronization, if you open this Microsoft Entra Connect 2, it's going to stop synchronization. We can see here, synchronization service is suspended until the setup wizard is closed. This is Active Directory setup. This is Entra ID Connect setup wizard. So now I like the question the last person asked. She was like, okay, what if you want to now you did not set up single sign-on during the configuration, and maybe your manager now say, what is wrong with you? Why would you not set up single sign-on? What kind of engineer are you? You understand? So all you just need to do is to rerun the Microsoft Entra Connect sync again. Then click on configure. So when you click on configure, you have several options you can do. Most times it is best you export the configuration settings. Because if you export the configuration settings, if God forbid your AD Connect server crash, you can always import these configuration settings and create a new one without stress. If you want to customize the synchronization option, maybe for instance, your manager now come that they created another OU. They want you to sync that OU. You use this. Then the question she asked, which is for single sign-on. Single sign-on falls under change user sign-in. So if I click on change user sign-in now, I do next. I will have to provide password to these accounts because like Microsoft said, always verify. They want to verify that it is the person because it could be impersonation, it could be anything. So as security engineers, we need to think very deep, like anything can happen. It could be that it is another person. So always verify. Always try to verify everything you do. Even aside cyber security, verify. Okay, so we click on sign in. So once you click on sign in now, we wait. It might ask for multi-factor authentication. So, or to just go. So now you can see, if for instance, I did not enable single sign-on before, I can just check it. If I want to disable single sign-on, I can as well disable it. If I want to, maybe my manager told me, what is wrong with you, this guy? You are too much. Who asked you to enable single sign-on? Did we send you? You just go back and uncheck it. Then, if for instance, the password hash synchronization, they now tell you, what's wrong with you? Why would you do password hash? Why not do pass-through? Who sent you? Then you do pass-through. Because I'm saying it like this because that is how some managers will talk to you. Like, why did you do it? Why did you not do it like that? Which It happens in organizations. So you can decide to enable all these things if you like. If you have even made mistake before, maybe you did the wrong thing, you can just come here and recheck it. Anyone you want to enable, you enable it. So because this is the way it is, I won't be able to go next. It's until I change the setting here that I can go next. But because it's still password hash, we can always go back. Because me, I don't want to use pass-through because I don't have the no time to be setting up, installing agents on-prem that will serve as validation. So I'll just go back. So if there are other things you still want to do, you can still do them. If you want to configure device option, maybe you want to do hybrid AD join. You want to configure device writeback. This is where you do it. You can just come here, do next. You will still sign in to your on-premise environment. Then once you do next, it asks you for password. Once it asks you for password, you put your username and password. It goes. So anything you want to do, because if you want to configure hybrid AD join, you need this guy to do it. You need AD Connect installed in the environment so that computers that are in the domain control, the OU that you select, they will be syncing to Entra ID, just like the way you are syncing users. And once they sync to Entra ID, automatically they join to Entra ID domain. You don't need to be doing it manually. So anything you want to do, it is possible. So you can just do all that. You can do all that. So because I did not authenticate and I canceled it, it didn't work. So you can go back. Any setting you want to configure, you can configure it. You can configure if you want to. The one that is very common that we will use is this one, customize synchronization option, because most times they will always tell you that, okay, we want to create an OU, we want you to add an OU that will still sync. You get, because organizations keep expanding. Organizations keep expanding. That's our prayer. Any organization we're working for, we pray that they grow, they expand, they have more customers, they have more staffs, they make more money, so that at least they will pay us well. So as they are growing, they need to set up organization units. Maybe they want to sync those OU to the cloud. You need to come here to add that new OU that have been created. But because of network, I don't know why network is slow like this. So we are just going to end the section today here because I don't want to
But
keep
please,
us for too long. Yeah,
all
thank you
right.
very
But you
much.
said you're thank you, but you say you're going to teach us how to set up the on-prems on our system. I know
Yeah,
there's no time again. So, but how we're going to do
okay.
that, I don't know.
This is it. I made mention of it that if you want to set up on-prem on your system, you come here, you click on search, you type control panel. So once you go to control panel on your system, you select program. Then from program, you click on turn on Windows feature. So from turn on Windows feature, you can decide to say enable Hyper-V. So if you enable Hyper-V, if I click OK now, it means that I want to enable Hyper-V, but I don't want to enable it. But for your case, if you want to enable it, you can click on Hyper-V, then click OK. Hyper-V is enabled. That's how to enable it. Yeah. So thank you very much, everybody, for today. As usual, we are going to drop the recording on the chat. And apologies, I'm using only one screen. I'm not using two screens. So I can't see the hands that are raised. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oyimafu, for answering my question.